All right, welcome. Today we are going to build a fortress, but, not with stone and mortar. We're talking firewalls, encryption, and code. This is all about modern cybersecurity, and the key takeaway is that the best defense isn't just one big wall. It's a whole series of layers, each one designed to protect our most valuable digital stuff. So let's get started and dig that moat.
So just stop and think about that for a second. If your entire digital life, all your data, your identity, if that's a castle, how many walls are actually protecting it? Is it just, one single password standing between you and the bad guys? Or is there a little more to it? This very idea is really the heart of a powerful security strategy. And that strategy has a name. It's called defense in depth. The principle is that having multiple layers of security is just way, way better than relying on one. The whole idea is pretty simple, really. If an attacker manages to get past one defense, boom, they immediately smack into another one, and then another one after that. So over the next few minutes, we're going to peel back these layers, one by one, starting from the very outside of our digital fortress.
Okay, so our very first layer is the network perimeter. You can think of this as the moat, the high outer walls, and the main gatekeepers of our castle. Its entire job is to control who can even get close to our network and decide what kind of traffic gets in or out.
And these are the tools we use to build those outer walls. You can think of them all working together as a team. Firewalls are like the main gatekeepers, checking every bit of traffic against a set of rules. A DMZ, or demilitarized zone, is kind of like a secure courtyard. It's where you put public-facing things, like a website, so attackers can't get a direct line to your internal network. Inside, we use VLANs to slice up the network, like keeping the guest Wi-Fi completely separate from the corporate network so visitors can't snoop around. And finally, think of intrusion detection and prevention systems, NIDs and NIPS, as the super vigilant guards on the wall. They aren't just checking IDs, they're actively patrolling, on the lookout for anything suspicious and blocking it in real time.
Okay, but what about people who need to get in? Our trusted users who are working from home or a coffee shop? That's where VPNs come in. They create a totally secure, encrypted tunnel right into the network. And this shows the two main ways to do it. A split tunnel is smart. It only sends the work-related stuff through the secure VPN, which is great for saving bandwidth. Now, on the flip side, you've got the full tunnel. This routes everything a user does on the internet through the corporate network. It's heavier on bandwidth for sure, but it gives you the absolute maximum security and control.
All right, so let's say an attacker gets past the outer walls. That's not the end of the story, not by a long shot. Now we've got to secure the actual devices, the laptops, the phones, the tablets. These are like the soldiers and the citizens living inside our fortress.
A huge piece of securing our devices is something we do every single day, connecting to Wi-Fi. For years, WPA2 was the standard, but it had a vulnerability that let attackers try to crack passwords offline. The new standard, WPA3, totally fixes this with a much more secure handshake method called Simultaneous Authentication of Equals, or SAE. So what's the bottom line here? It basically makes it crazy hard for attackers to guess your Wi-Fi password, even if it's not the strongest one in the world. Now, let's talk about phones. This gets kind of complicated because companies have a bunch of different ways to handle them. This table breaks it down really well. On one end of the spectrum, you've got BYOD, bring your own device, where you use your personal phone for work. On the complete opposite end, you have corporate-owned devices. And then you've got everything in between, like COPE, where the company owns it but you can use it personally, and CYOD, where you get to choose your own device from a list. Each one strikes a different balance between freedom for the user and security for the company.
So how do you manage all this, especially when people are bringing their own phones to work? Well, there's a really clever technique called containerization. What it does is digitally fence off a part of the phone. You have your personal space, and then you have this encrypted work profile. All the company apps and data live inside that secure bubble. The best part? If you lose your phone or leave the company, they can hit a button and remotely wipe just the work stuff. All your personal photos, your text, your apps, totally safe. It's pretty cool.
Okay, let's shift our gaze from the ground up to the sky. These days, so much of our important data doesn't even live in our own buildings anymore. It's in the cloud. This is our vast, sprawling kingdom in the sky, and you better believe it needs its own special set of guards and defenses.
So protecting this cloud kingdom really boils down to a few absolutely crucial things. First, data has to be encrypted. Both when it's just sitting there, we call that at rest, and when it's moving from place to place, in transit.
Second, all the things running our apps, like virtual machines, have to be patched and secured constantly. Third, and this one is huge, we have to protect our secrets. These are things like API keys and credentials that are basically passwords for programs. And finally, high availability is key. It means spreading everything out across different locations so that if one place has an outage, your services stay online. Think about how many cloud apps a company uses these days. Salesforce, Microsoft 365, Slack, it's a ton, right? It gets really hard to keep security consistent across all of them. That's where a Cloud Access Security Broker, or CASB, steps in. It's a tool that sits right in the middle, between your users and all those cloud apps, and it acts like a central security checkpoint. It enforces the rules, looks for threats, and makes sure sensitive data isn't leaking out. It's a unified control center for a chaotic cloud world.
Okay, we've secured the network, we've locked down our devices, we've put guards on the cloud. But now we get to what is maybe the most critical and honestly, the most vulnerable layer of them all, identity. This is all about proving who someone is and then deciding what they're allowed to touch. This is literally the key to the kingdom.
This quote just nails the two sides of identity management. Authentication is the first step, proving you are who you claim to be. That's your password, your fingerprint, whatever. But once you're authenticated, authorization takes over. That's the system of rules that dictates what you can actually do. It's like this, just because the guard lets you into the castle grounds doesn't mean you automatically get the key to the royal treasury, right?
Let's be real. Remembering dozens of different passwords is a total nightmare. And worse, it's a huge security risk. Single sign-on, SSO, is the solution. It lets you log in just one time with a single strong password and then gives you access to every single app you need for your job. It's like having a master P card that securely unlocks all the right doors without you having to fumble for a different key for each one.
So how do we make that one login super secure? We use something called multi-factor authentication, or MFA. MFA is all about combining at least two of these different types of proof. It's not just a password, which is something you know. It's also a code from your phone, something you have, or your fingerprint, something you are. By demanding more than one type of proof, you make it just ridiculously harder for a bad guy to get in, even if they somehow steal your password.
Okay, so you're in. Now what? How does the system decide what you're actually allowed to do? Well, here are two common ways. The traditional way is role-based access control, or RBAC. It's simple. Your access is based on your job title. Managers get manager access. But the more modern, flexible approach is attribute-based access control, or ABAC. This is way more dynamic. It can make decisions based on all kinds of things. Your role, sure, but also your physical location, the time of day, or even how secure your device is. It's much more granular.
So we've gone through all these layers of our fortress, right? The walls, the guards, the devices, but holding it all together, deep underground, is this invisible foundation that makes everything else work. This is the absolute bedrock of digital trust.
And that foundation is called Public Key Infrastructure, or PKI for short. It's the whole complex system that lets us trust that people and websites are who they say they are online. You know that little padlock icon you see in your browser's address bar that tells you a site is secure? PKI is the magic that makes that work.
So how does that trust actually work? Well, it's all about something called the chain of trust. At the very top, you have a root certificate authority, a super secure, ultimate source of trust. Think of it like the federal government. Because it's so important, it delegates power to intermediate CAs, kind of like how the federal government lets a state DMV issue licenses. Those intermediates are the ones who actually give a certificate to a website. That's your driver's license. When your browser sees that certificate, it can trace the trust all the way back up the chain to the root CA it already trusts, and it knows the whole thing is legit. And there you have it. We've built our digital fortress, layer by painstaking layer, from the network perimeter right down to the bedrock of trust. But the thing is, this world is always changing. New tech means new threats. So that brings us to one last question for you to think about. As our world keeps expanding into things like AI, the metaverse, and who knows what else, what do you think is coming next? What's going to be the next essential layer we absolutely have to build into our digital fortress?